here we are. This is the first slide. Yeah, the Edificity Network project funded by the European Commission is really a large project. Here you can see the logos of the organizations that are in our projects working together. And we tackle urban transformation processes, and we aim to build city resilience with edible city solutions. Marisa, maybe the next slide. Yes, there are some urban challenges that are really crucial, and maybe all of you are suffering from these problems, challenges. And all of them are addressed by the EdiCitNet project and by Edible City Solutions. These urban environmental conditions are challenging human health and well-being, and also threaten natural resources. We see worldwide an ongoing urbanization, which decreases regularly green space per capita and increases the need to counteract environmental injustice. And also we have problems with criminality and the exclusion of vulnerable groups. At the same time, we're facing challenges of mitigation of climate change, and this the costs for doing this are rising, and we need more money for the maintenance of infrastructure. Next slide. And in this context, the concept of nature-based solutions appeared mainly in the discussion of Europe, also defined by the European Commission as cost-effective solutions that are inspired and supported by nature. They provide at the same time environmental, social, and economic benefits. So what you could ask is, again, a new concept like the ecosystem services, etc., where we do need, again, a concept for this. And I agree with these concerns, but however, something is interesting in this concept. It's transdisciplinary, so we need researchers, experts, citizens from very different perspectives to work on these solutions, and it is directly linked to design and implementation. So what we have here is not an holistic, it's not only a scientific approach on looking for solutions for common challenges. It's an integrative, systemic approach where everybody is an expert and everybody can support to develop these solutions. And these solutions are really broad. There we have things in the field of restoration of ecosystems, but also on infrastructure, solutions on infrastructure, on management, on policies, and all of them are in favor of human well-being and on the preservation of biodiversity. Next slide, please. These are examples from cities. Nature-based solutions are often discussed in urban contexts. You see these examples that you know from your city. There are parks, there are green facades, but there's also the wild growing green beside the street. There are green roofs or other parts of green infrastructure. All they provide ecosystem services, and they are well known from the processes of the economics of the ecosystems and biodiversity approach. We have several services that we get, like the absorption of pollutants or the reduction of pollution in general, the infiltration of water, stormwater into the ground. We have rain gardens, we have a lot of services. Next slide. And in our topic in the summer school and in the EdiCitNet project are the edible city solutions. So we add a new component on these nature-based solutions. And we did this because we want to overcome the mismatch between the traditional nature-based solutions and the citizens by deepening the social dimension of nature-based solutions. We observed in the past that these parks and nice infrastructures are used by the citizens, but not designed, not created, not maintained by the citizens normally. So they use it as a visitor or a nice to have, but they do not identify directly with these nature-based solutions. And what we observed in the context of urban common movements in the world is that edible city solutions, also all forms of urban agriculture, are really different from these traditional nature-based solutions. So they mainstream successful co-creation practice in cities. And so they are socially inclusive. Many people work together there. They invite citizens to co-create their sustainable development. So the society which is developing in such contexts is really different from the traditional nature-based solutions. And every citizen is proactively changing their urban environment to their own benefit. And so we also come to this paradigm shift of lifestyle, what we need to make our cities more resilient. And what we call this community, this inclusive community, as communities of knowledge, practice, and cosmology. So we co-create these new cities. Next slide, please. I would like to highlight that edible city solutions are not only community gardens, not only school gardens. We have a really wide range of different forms of urban farming activities. And this includes also high-tech solutions that use effectively water and nutrients in farming, in indoor farming facilities, for example. So this includes roof gardens, this includes aquaculture, this includes also the wild berries of the park. So there are a lot of different edible city solutions, and they all serve serve to the urban citizens in very diverse way, and all mostly at the same time. So partly they provide green jobs, but also they help to enhance public health, participation, and they reduce the urban heat island effect, as an example. We have effects of cooling, air and water cleaning. We have habitat service and recreation effects, but we also have at the same time services that address food security, poverty, elevation, and inequality of urban areas. Next slide. Our main aim in the EdiCitNet project is really to lower barriers of edible city solution mainstreaming. We have a lot of nice pilots, a lot of good examples, best practices, but what we want is a mainstreaming of these solutions that should be a standard instrument, a standard solution in urban planning worldwide. So there are different strengths and opportunities of edible city solutions, but there are also some problems, some challenges that we are facing. I want to highlight some. The first issue is that we have a lack of mainstreaming of knowledge. The knowledge is really fragmented. It's there and there, but we need more exchange on this knowledge. We need to learn together from the errors, mistakes, and from the success stories of everybody who is in this movement. And we have also the issue on lack of acceptance of adipocity solutions in some target groups. We have many legal barriers for market uptake, which is an important issue in the business area. And we have in many cities also a problem of assessment of land. So there are other conflicting needs and land uses, and we need to look for a good place for these adipocity solutions. We have also the problem in mostly every city in the world that the city administrations are working in a sectoral way, so they don't look what the other department is doing, and so there's a lack of integration of adipocity solutions into urban planning, and also only some cities have a support through urban policies. And of course, we also see, at least in the global north, the effect of green gentrification. So these pilots and projects are mostly in those areas that are less vulnerable in terms of social situation. Next slide, please. Yeah, so what we are doing in the EdiCitNet project is we do inclusive co-creation. So we have co-created city teams, our communities of knowledge and practice in every city. And there is currently happening an interesting collective learning process that leads to an interesting, comprehensive and co-developed knowledge base. So we have contributions from theoretical and practical contexts, and this you will see also in the summer school. We have really nice people in our project that have a lot of knowledge and share a lot of knowledge, and we as scientists are learning a lot in this process. The communities are built on a common needs, resources, and capabilities, and all are agree that they want to improve their living conditions. Yes, and we have totally different perspectives on such, let's say, not so easy to tackle things like an institutional context. Let's say the system, which is in our cities, a part of the reality where we struggle with or where we agree with. And so these city teams have totally different perspectives on this and are discussing this on a eye level, on the same eye level. Next slide, please. So in the project, we have also totally different cities participating and totally different backgrounds. We have cities in Europe, but also beyond Europe. And we can talk about totally different geographies of co-creation as well. So there are different styles. We have vivid neighborhood organizations that are participating. We have cities where participatory budgeting is already in place, where we have also some cities with a patriarchal approach to participation, with a certain distrust of bottom-up initiatives against top-down administration. Also, these are the reality that we are facing in our project, and where we are looking for good solutions for everybody. We have also experienced a lot of political changes and changes in staff, for example, changes in the general aims of urban administration. And we have differences in, we call this planning and versus an acting culture. So there are cities where they want to do something concrete, whereas in other cities we have long discussions before something is going on. And what we also observe, and this is maybe also clear to you, city size matters. In a small city where everybody is knowing each other, there are the discussions working in another way than in a big city. So this is our current network, and this network is growing. Yes. So we have maybe some challenges and lessons learned that I would like to share with you, and that could also include in the discussions of the summer school. We have to recognize and build up an existing structures of co-creation. So there are different ways to co-create the urban environment. We have to build trustful, transparent, and lateral environments. We have to reflect critically on power asymmetries that we observed in nearly every city. And what we highlight or want to highlight is that we need a lobbying, a consensus beyond political parties and strains. So we need to convince everybody. If not, a change in a government would mean that all the activities and the projects can go down. It's also important to maybe also you as participants in the summer school to reflect on the role of so-called experts, on scientists, and this. This is really important to facilitate and not to guide and to explain the others how the world should look like and how to change the world. This is really a co-creation process. So it's really important to keep the mind open to other approaches, to other perspectives. And what we also learned in our project so far is that we need an open culture of error or mistakes. So we have to do it. We have several choices, several solutions. We have to try if these are suitable, if this works or not, and then learn also from our errors and mistakes. Next slide, please. So what we in concrete do in the project is we co-create living labs. These are like laboratories, temporal spaces where we anchor adipocity solutions and find out what works, what not. We do monitoring and and look how are the impacts. And in other cities, we face the challenge to develop a type of master plan. So this means a systematic approach, how planning urban infrastructure could be in line with adipocity solutions, or how these adipocity solutions could be integrated there. So, and how this could work in a collaborative way and not in a classical way, how participation currently, at least in the many cities of the global north, is working, that somebody makes a plan, then the citizens are open to look at it and give their approach and their critics. This happens partially, but also we observed that only the same are giving the opinion on this, etc. But it's not really participatory in sense that everybody can go there and that we also reach those groups that normally don't participate in these activities. Next slide. So it's really important to have a multi-perspective view on urban food systems. This is something that in the summer school will be in the center, to have the different perspectives. It's really important also to handle over responsibility and decision-making power to the people, to the citizens. This means regarding scenarios, where we want to go, budgeting and monitoring. So they decide what they want to achieve and also how to monitor this and find solutions. And what is really important in the world of the adipocity solutions initiatives is that it should be something sustainable, also economically sustainable, and avoid self-exploitation. We observed as many nice initiatives appear and disappear after this. So IRITHESys network provides a marketplace for exchange and also business consulting, which will be also part of the next talks. And of course, we also we started with the project before COVID, and then we have a lot of interesting impacts with COVID-19, with the crisis, the global crisis, and there we have, yeah, let's say positive and negative impacts. And this is also a big issue that we could really deeply discuss in the summer school and exchange our experiences on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ina, for that introduction. I can see we already have a few questions in the Q&A, which is really good. If anyone else has questions throughout the rest of this keynote, then please just write them in the Q&A section at the bottom and we will answer them at the end. Okay, I'm going to hand over now to Suhana, Reddy and Thomas Wachtel for the next section of today's talk. We're going to talk a little bit more about the conceptual framework of ECS and also the concept of the summer school. So I'm going to hand over to you two.
Hi, everybody. Welcome also from my side.
Hi, everybody. Hi, my name is Thomas Wachtel. I'm a social geographer by training, and I think I will start with this introduction. Yeah, it's about the concept of the ECS Summer School and about the 4 pillars, especially. Yeah. Next slide, please, Marisa. Thank you. Yeah, why we are doing the summer school here? What are the objectives of our today's and next week's summer school? Of course, the summer school is for you, and we are happy that you are here. But it's also crucial that we want to spread the general concept of edible cities, and we want to foster ECS implementation worldwide to have resilient cities. Another main important point is that we want to raise the awareness for transdisciplinary working modes and research, and of course its implementation, because we come to know that beside a lot of transformations around like digitalization, migration, globalization, there's a transformation also in the general research approach and of having more transdisciplinary working modes, and many studies showed that this brings us to good solutions for complex challenges, and that's why the summer school is working in this way. Then, of course, we want to share and teach transdisciplinary ECS knowledge, practice, and experience, and we want to provide some important take-home ECS knowledge messages for you, also for ECS replication in your cities and beyond. Then we want together co-create solution-oriented ECS formats, also for more resilient cities. And last but not least, we want to promote the value of social, ecological aspects and how this can be incorporated into innovative business models for ECS. Next slide. So here you can see the 4 pillars of edible city solutions, and it's a social, the economics, ecological, and a pillar about governance and policy. And edible city solutions, how Ina has mentioned it, rely on all 4 pillars, but focus on them in different ways, of course, depending on the size, on the type of the accessibility, the technology level. To give an example, if you have, for example, a fruit orchard or a fruit meadow in a park, this ECS focus more on ecological and the social aspect, and not so much on the economic one. And in contrast, if you have a high-tech indoor farm producing a lot of plants for supermarkets, for example, that focus more on economic aspects, and also there's a great requirement of administrative and legislative effort, of course. The next slide, please. Yeah. Coming to the first pillar, the social pillar. The social pillar is very essential, as it puts ECS in the middle of the society by its integrative nature. That means food connects everything and everyone. For example, if you go to a student party or a private party, you may know that the kitchen is the room where all the people are meeting, and this is because everybody has a matter of food, and it's really easy to communicate and to start a discussion. And the social pillar is also very important, as it improves, well, the ECS improves the social cohesion and also the local identity. It's improving community building. It's start to have a community at all and to have resilient neighborhoods. ECS improves also the mental and the physical health. There are a lot of studies outside, and you have improved environmental education, ecological awareness, and general well-being, of course. And it produces more transdisciplinarity and inclusivity and openness. And you got a lot of mutual learning and understanding by the co-creation processes. This is very important. Maybe Suhana, you will go forward with the ecological one and with the economic, of course, because it's your expertise.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, so now we have already got deeper insight into the societal challenges which can be tackled by edible city solutions. Of course, it is natural that the ecological pillar doesn't need so much of explanation, maybe because, as Ina already introduced, the nature-based solution in itself is there as being a solution which is nearby nature and going along with nature too. So the ecological benefits lay at hand and are very obvious. First of all, we have the closed water and resource and nutrition cycles, which can be implemented within such an edible city solution. It is advancing biodiversity in the city. It is improving microclimates in the cities, and it is fostering green infrastructure and connectivity, which is also in turn tackling problems like low mobility of elder people, which is enhancing also the green infrastructure within a city. So it is also very good to reduce noise and noise pollution, and it is improving the air quality. So there we have a lot of a bunch of benefits from the ecological side of such an edible city solution, or also if we want to take it a little bit wider, of a nature-based solution. Marisa, next slide, please. Yeah, the economic pillar. We have it already in the chat. I'm very grateful for your question. The question was, I think it's best if I read it out. Isabella Vera is interested in going deeper into the question, how does the indoor farming is really, let's say, where is the social benefit of this indoor farming, and if there are other best practice examples. So what might become clear now in this small wrap up here is that, as Thomas already mentioned, we have to weigh it in a different way. That means there's sometimes from Edible City Solution Initiative a greater maybe monetary value more than the social value. Still, it is increasing the awareness of producing sustainably food within a city. So therefore, we still call it an Edible City Solution Initiative because, yeah, it is creating a benefit to the society within the city by just putting on the table that we can produce food within a city sustainably. Yeah. Creating businesses out of Edible City Solution leads to the Edible City Solution initiatives. It provides green jobs. We will soon also have in the Miro board the value chain, which is compiling a bit all kinds of different Edible City Solution initiatives. And there you can find the different weighing and the different focusing on different aspects of Edible City Solutions, whether they are have a greater societal impact or whether they have a greater economic impact, and thus stabilizing the resilience of the microeconomy within a city, for example. But where we are always deep into the topic is they are generating, on the one hand, the return on investment, but on the other hand, they are also generating social return on investment. We will have a lot of examples also within the summer school throughout the whole period. And yeah, at the end, this leads to a transformation of the conventional economy, especially in cities, by such small-scale solutions. After the financial crisis in 2007, there was a huge need of making economy a bit more resilient. And one approach by the European Commission was to tackle these instabilities by providing small-scale solutions, by not that the system is not getting out of its balance by just one crisis. So therefore, there was the strategy to dive deeper into small-scale solutions within cities and or also rural areas. Yeah, what can we do? At last, all the ECSI are driving the agricultural turn because they show what is possible in a city, and they also show how it is possible by benefiting from their activities in each of the ways and each of the pillars, for example. Yeah, reducing the macroeconomic costs, for example, health and safety, that means that the resilience of a city is increasing at all, and therefore costs like health costs and safety, security aspects are tackled by Edible City Solution initiatives and by Edible City Solutions. Yeah, maybe next slide, and I give the word to Thomas.
Thank you, Suhana. Yeah, the last but not really the last pillar is the policy and governance pillars. It's a bit an extra pillar because often you cannot see the benefits in a direct way, and it is often the other way around, that ECS implementation and ECS in general are depending on legislative and administrative requirements. That means we identify in all our cities very different requirements, but there's also the other way, that ECS implementation is providing a lot of positive impact for the cities and for the municipalities, and it is for the long-term anchoring of ECS and municipalities very important. Some examples are that you have a lot of nice showcases and best practices of ECS for replicating, and ECS implementation and the co-creation of ECS, supporting a lot of organizational infrastructure within the municipalities, which were not there before often. and it's innovating some urban planning structures, and it's fostering the open governance proposals which are there in a lot of cities in Northern Europe and in the global north. And the last one is, of course, the revival of broad participation by very different stakeholders, what Ina mentioned before. And if you want, you can say after 2,500 years, the real participation which started in Greece come back. And yeah, we want to use this revival for a lot of innovative and important ECS, which makes our cities hopefully resilient in the future. Yeah, I think this was it. Yeah. Yeah, thank you very much for attention. We are looking forward to work with you, and also for the question in the next session and the introduction session after that, of course. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Suhana and Thomas, for that introduction. There's some very important information there, not just for the summer school, but also for anyone who's interested in edible cities and like the complexity of ECS, but also the complex benefits of ECS as well. So just to close the keynote, I'm going to present very briefly the different experts that are going to be guiding you through the summer school. So I think all of our speakers have mentioned that we have some very interesting experts who have a lot of practical experience with ECS and ECS initiatives joining us and giving the participants, so you guys, feedback and input throughout these 2 weeks. I'm just going to present them very briefly now, so you can look forward to meeting them later on. So talking to us about the pillar, the society pillar, so ECS and society, we're going to have Vic Burrill. She is the director of the Brighton and Hove Food Partnership, which is a non-profit organisation which helps people to learn to cook, eat healthily, grow their own food and waste less food. And they're based in Brighton in the south of England. Talking to us about the economic pillar, so how to sustain an ECS initiative and keep it going financially. We're going to have Robert Shaw from the Prinzessinnengarten Kollektiv. The Prinzessinnengarten is a very well-known urban gardening project in Berlin. It used to be based in an abandoned area of Kreuzberg, and they recently just moved to a new area in a city cemetery, which you can actually see in this picture here. They've set up like a vegetable plot and a growing food in this like multifunctional space now. So that's going to be a very interesting talk with him. We also have Kai Gilthorn and Helen Münich from Mundraub joining us. They're going to be taking us on a tour of Berlin. That's for the participants who are in Berlin, and we're going to turn that into a video for the rest of the participants who can't be here. So mundraub.org is a map where you can find freely available edible food. So Ina mentioned this, that there are edible city solutions just growing naturally, like nuts and wild herbs and fruits and that kind of thing. And this is a map where you can go and see if there are any close to where you live, and you can also add your own edible city solutions to this map. Talking to us about ECS and ecology, we have Latifa Bousselmi from REACT. That's the Association of Research in Action, and they're based in Carthage in Tunisia, Carthage. And REACT is a sustainable development association with expertise in the fields of biodiversity and water management. In particular, the integration of non-conventional water sources for the optimal use of water in dry and arid areas, and also with the goal of achieving zero water waste. And we have another water expert joining us for the session on ECS and ecology. That's Martin Begelsberger from Transition Oststeiermark. That's a grassroots NGO which works in and around southeastern Austria, and it's part of the global Transition Towns network, which you might have heard of. And they consist, it's a group of people working together in different groups to support different sustainable initiatives, including a repair initiative, solar systems, for individual and public housing, and also edible city solutions, of course. And talking to us about the final pillar, so policy and governance, we have Bundesverband Gebäudegrün. This is the German Federal Association of Green Buildings. We have Felix Mollenhauer and Rebecca Golke. And this is an association which is a advocacy group for companies, communities, and anyone who's interested in building greening. So that's green roofs, green walls, and interior greening. And we also hope to have some insights as well from a city coordinator called Anneli Carlson. She's a city administrator and she's a city team coordinator in the EdiCitNet project for the city of Andernach, which is in West Germany, and is a city actually well known for being highly edible. So as you can see on this picture here, they're actually growing vegetables just outside the old city walls. So that's the end of the input section, and we're going to move on now to the Q&A. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to take a little look at the questions that we have. So I think Suhana already talked about one of the questions. I don't know if anyone else wants to elaborate on Suhana's answer. So we had one question here from Isabella, who was asking about indoor farming, and in particular InFarm, which is a large and very fast growing company, which is a private sector venture. And she says, how can these high-tech VC funded initiatives that are largely focused on generating profit also offer a social benefit, or are there other best practice examples? So Suhana has already answered this by saying that it's different ECS have different impacts, but yeah, maybe Ina, if you'd like to elaborate, do you have any feedback?
Yeah, only I want to highlight that not every ECS should be developed in the same way in all pillars. So for the edible city, for reducing the ecological footprint of a city, also totally profit oriented enterprise like InFarm is also helpful to make the city more resilient. So, but maybe if we take this this technology into every house and to every building, then it could be also realized by a cooperative or by local people that are organized in their in their building. And then this could be also be much more societal than maybe now what is InFarm doing, or the ECS, the tomato fish farms, etc. And this is related also to the other question, maybe Marisa, that it's not only about vegetables, even the aquaponic farms with fish or chickens or egg, or even if we think in the sheep that are grazing the green spaces of some parts, some neighborhoods, for example, in Berlin, they are, of course, part of the edible city.
Yeah, I was also going to take that question next from Waldo, whether it's all only about vegetables and fruits and that kind of thing, because I think it also says in the flyer that I think I uploaded to the Moodle that it can also be sheep farming or beekeeping or anything that's to do with food. So it's not just vegetables, even though, of course, that's the most visual, easy to sort of picture thing, like picture behind me, it's, you know, growing vegetables from the ground. There's lots of different forms of ECS. It doesn't have to be just that kind of thing. Also, as an answer to Isabella, I don't know if she saw in the chat that Martin has posted a link. So Martin's one of our experts. He's going to talk to us about ECS in ecology. He's posted a link that I think might be a best practice example of someone that combines indoor farming with also a more social approach. So maybe that would be something interesting to look at. Oh, and Thomas also, go ahead.
Thanks, Maria. Just coming back to the ECS farm as an example of a high-tech indoor farm ECS here in Berlin. This is a good example because actually it's clear they are focused on gaining profit and on economic impact. But on the other side, there's a big interest from all over the world, from citizens, from urban planners, how this look like and how does it working. And now it's possible to book excursions within the company, and I think every week there's a TV or a radio team there, and in this way they raise the awareness for ECS at all. And this is what I mean with there's a different pillar that all the ECS have a stake in such a pillar, but the focus is clear on economic side, of course.
Yeah, I mean, the ideal ECS hits all of the pillars, but I'm not sure if there is an ECS that would hit all of them equally at the same time. So we have two questions that are about city teams. They're kind of similar. I would combine them and say that the question is more, how were people found to join the city team? So what was the process of forming the city teams? And also what was the process for maybe choosing the cities?
Maybe I start and then
Yeah.
the others can jump in. Actually, the city teams were formed totally different in the cities. Every city has a different stake on this, so there's no rule how to form city teams. They should be inclusive. We tried always to use the picture of a football team that, this is also a changing team. There are people with totally different roles, and if there's somebody new needed in the team, then they should be included. And also the cities made it in a totally different way. Partially, there are some that invited all that are interested, and then during the time there's a certain part of people, a set of people that are participating actively, others that are maybe observing the process and providing inputs when needed. But this is really quite different. There's no rule. We have a guideline on this, but we are also regularly revising the guidelines, and it's a process that is totally driven by the team members. There's something that we can discuss maybe also in the summer school. Of course, there are some effects that that there are some challenges, of course, that sometimes it's not so transparent how they were installed, but this is something ongoing. So we try always to open it again. And this may be something that we can also discuss later in the summer school more in deep. And maybe the others have an opinion on this.
Yeah, maybe as an explanation, within the EdiCitNet consortium, we have for several cities, several partners for the most cases. And with these partners, we started in stakeholder analysis and asked for who has really a stake on ECS in the city. And according to this stakeholder analysis, we formed a team, like Ina mentioned, a kind of football team. That means 10 to 15 people with different expertises to have a really transdisciplinary team. And I think we do not want to give more regulation for this as this football team and the stakeholder analyst, because if you be honest, you cannot manage co-creation. You can try it, but it's not feasible. The other opportunity you have is to do a lottery. You can draw the participants and you can choose them. This was done before in the 70s, of course, but we chose the stakeholder analysis and that the cities can co-create their team itself.
And something that is also really challenging for the European Commission, as an example, is that we always produce things that are living, so things that are changing. Also, the city teams are changing. The documents that are produced by the city teams are changing. So this is also something that is really important for co-creation, that you don't stick only to something. you are always discussing again and again the things. So this is also complicated for all administration staff that are involved, because they want, we want to do this now, and then we make step 1, 2, 3, 5, and then we have a result. And these are processes that are always in circular approach. So we are really changing things also based on what is happening in this process. And this is something really challenging for everyone who is participating in this process. Yeah.
Yes, and to have always a perfect team, we ask, or the team asks always at the end of each meeting who is missing, and for the next upcoming task, and in this way you guarantee a nearly perfect team, hopefully.
Are there any people that tend to be missing? Like any particular stakeholders that are harder to get hold of? Because I think that was also kind of in one of the questions. Is there anyone lacking?
Yes, of course. This happens, also depending a bit on the cities. But to have all important stakeholders on board means that also we should have some stakeholders on board that are maybe not interested in adaptability solutions, but they have the power to decide on something. For example, there you have the issue that you have to have city administrators on board that maybe are managing the land, and they are not interested to have another complicated stakeholder on board. So this is an ongoing process to talk, to invite them. Sometimes also people go out, and then you have to rebuild and re-establish this again. So it's an ongoing process of team building.
Yeah, I can understand that it's hard to get the people in the team who don't really want to be supporting edible city solutions, but they're also probably the most important people to have there.
Yeah. As a result of this analysis, in some cities there were established some kind of lobby task force to get these people on board. And this was really interesting that in a certain time frame, for example, prior to elections, the people are more interested to participate. And then let's say it's your turn to convince them and to make a commitment, a long-term commitment. And this is also something that we are struggling in every city, that even the people that are participating for city administration to get this commitment internally in their own city administration. So it's not only the problem to get them on board, but to have a long time commitment. This is something challenging in the whole process.
Okay, we have lots of questions coming in now. We have one that's not a question, but more of a statement. I'm just going to read it because I think it's quite interesting and it could lead us on to another discussion. So it's from Erin, who's based in South Africa. And she says that recently a man was charged with bylaw infringement for planting vegetables on the pavement outside, on the pavement for the public, because the pavement belongs to the state. And while the municipality are yet to outline the actual bylaw that's been infringed, it brings about an interesting debate on ECS within neighborhoods in South Africa. I don't know if you have any comments on that.
Yeah, we know these experiences. There are many of this, and it's an issue that you have to talk to the people that are responsible for this part. Yes, for the regulations in the street canyons, etc. And this is something that happens really often. So. The only way that we can propose here is always to talk to the people, to invite them, to try to convince them, to find, to get them on board and to find a common solution. But this happens worldwide really often.
Suhana, Thomas, do you have any
Yeah, I can just underline what Ina just said. I mean, there's a word for it also, guerrilla gardening. I think this refers also to the power relations Ina was referring to between the city administration and the normal citizen. And I think the co-creation and the city team and the possibility to engage more in such processes would balance this system a bit more.
Yeah, it's a shame when a citizen who wants to make the city greener is somehow, breaking the law, when it would seem like the simple solution for people to just take it into their own hands and do it. I think it might be interesting when we get to the talk with Robert from Prinzessinnengarten. I think he also has some examples of how it's an urban garden, that it's a non-profit institution, and so he's also had difficulties, I think, with laws and governments and infringements of that kind of thing, which has been a struggle, I think, for the organization for several years. So that's something which you see in a lot of cities. We also have a question from Kia. It's been answered by Martin also in the Q&A to a certain extent, and I totally agree with his answer. But her question was how far ECS, or I guess the implementation of edible city solutions, differs between developed and developing countries. So global south, global north, to put it like that. And does weather play a crucial role? I guess weather would play a crucial role for ECS like this. But yeah, do you have any insights?
I know in terms of concepts, global south, global north, I agree that there are differences. We have in our project also cities from the global south, and but they are also quite different. The development of edible city solutions are quite different, for example, in Montevideo or in Lomé. And let's say in a certain amount in some countries or some cities of the global south, the income and the producing really of food that helps or sustainable the income of the family is more important than in the global north. This is an issue, but also currently these things are changing, because we also have in cities of the global north these gardens that produce for the I don't know in English, Tafelgärten, also these for people that don't get enough food until the end of the month, or they don't reach the end of the month with their money. So then they go to initiatives like this and participate there. So what I see is that in the local governments or in the administration, the view on edible city solutions is quite different in the global south and the global north. There is this stigma that that's something poor and from the past. There's this idea in the global south, but this is changing. This change is, for example, is different in Quito and different in Montevideo. Different in China, but there are some stigma that we have to face. And what we do in this project to discuss this, we work a lot with high tech solutions also in these countries. We try to implement this. And then it lost a bit these traditional and from the past image, and it gets a bit or the interest of the people that are governing is higher on the solutions. And but this is maybe not an issue on the people that are doing urban farming in the cities. This is more the reflection of the governments, of the administration on this.
Thank you. Thomas, do you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I just want to say I totally agree with Mr. Begelsberger, with Martin, but to be honest, I'm not a friend of theory that differs between global north and global south and such things, because they are focusing all the time on differences between them. And if we always go in this direction, we will never come to a world which is just one for all. And fortunately, in this project, this is a bit the other way around, that we are here in the global north, are learning a lot of the cities from the global south, if you want to say it like that. Because here the knowledge about urban agriculture is a bit disappeared the last 100 years. And now we can learn a lot from other countries and cities, for example, from Havana, of course, and that's why, yeah, I'm a bit between. And coming back to the question of this guerrilla gardening thing, this was also a hot discussion here in Berlin about Baumscheiben, the place around a tree on the pavement, because a lot of citizens greened this area by their own, and then the people from the municipality came and say, oh, that's not okay, that's not regulated. And but now there's a guideline outside after a lot of discussion, and it is regulated and allowed to green your place around the tree.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of cities share the same challenges. Just checking, we have another question here from Colin. He says, I'm interested to hear from your experience, are there any good examples of what structures or networks are in place to sell or distribute food products, such as community-supported agriculture, i.e. community cooperatives? I don't know if Suhana, as the ECS and economy expert, has some ideas of different networks or structures that are in place.
Yeah, sure. I can answer this. Actually, it seems that a lot of questions are leading to the value chain, but this is in the next session, because the value chain gives you an overview what all we consider edible city solution initiatives to be part of the whole system. So the whole system includes also alternative transportation ways, for example, and also instruments or tools or whatever is sustainable transportation alternatives. So regarding the fact of the market access, it is like this, that we have a lot of edible city solution initiatives which foster direct marketing. For example, in Berlin and in Germany and in France, initially in France, we have the Marktschwärmer. This is actually only a platform which gives the one who produces food in cities the possibility to sell these in, let's say, pop-up markets. They are shortly organized in regions, and they have like such distributors and sellers, and these people organize these pop-up markets. And then we have a direct contact between the producer and the buyer. And this is what shortens the long value chain in the food value chain. And so the consequence is that selling and buying, and also the traditional way of the money flowing down the value chain, but the products flowing up the value chain is a little bit levered here. And so we have a more equal distribution of the gain of such products and in turn fresh food to the customer. So maybe we can go in the mirror board more deeper into this discussion, what all is part of the value chain and how these business to customer distributors are leveraging the production in cities, the food production in cities.
Thank you, Suhana. Yeah, you make a good point that we're going a bit more into like the broader understanding of what is an ECS. I've pasted in, oh no, I need to paste it in the chat again. I'm just pasting in the chat now a nice brief definition of what an ECS is that is sometimes used in EdiCitNet's literature and that kind of thing. And it says it's ECS is a service, measure or product that facilitates sustainable urban food production, consumption and distribution. So often the focus can be on the production, like here it's producing food, therefore that's what ECS is. But as Suhana mentioned, it's it encompasses this whole value chain, the one that she shared on the Miro board, and it actually encompasses a much broader range of different things. So something that you might not think is an edible city solution might actually be, if it makes urban food systems in your city more sustainable. We have a few more questions.
One more sentence, maybe to avoid the confusion about the edible city solution in itself, which is, let's say, the boosted nature-based solution. We can go to the point to say that we call all the initiatives which somehow use edible city solutions as their core to produce social benefit, to produce also to have a financial benefit whatsoever. We tend to call them edible city solution initiative. That means we put the I at the end, because then it gets more clear whether we talk from the nature-based solution aspect, which is just the solution in itself, which is provided by nature, or whether there are employees taking care of these and benefiting on a slightly, let's say, economic or even social level of it.
Thank you. Thank you for adding that. We have one interesting question here from Jenny, again about the city teams, or more about the network actually. So she says, I'm wondering about cities like Copenhagen that are very forward in terms of green urban mobility and tackling the heat island effects by establishing green islands every few kilometers. Are there efforts to get those cities into the network to learn from their approaches and best practices? Also thinking about New York's rooftop farms or Paris that recently underwent huge changes in their green infrastructure to make the city more sustainable. I don't know who'd like to answer that, maybe Ina?
I can start, yes. Our network is on different levels. As we have, we try to get the initiatives that are doing edible city solutions in the city on board, but of course also administrations. And I feel that you mean the city administration of Copenhagen or something like this. This normally, as we have city administrations that ask us for support and wants to be part of the network, but more often this happens with the initiatives itself. So there are different levels of participation in the network, and we are constantly inviting them also for this exchange of knowledge and what happens, etc. And this is also happening not only in our project, this is also happening across European projects, and Copenhagen, for example, is also part of other projects participating there. And there's also this exchange and network. Yeah, maybe Thomas wants to add something on this.
Yes, I can. Yeah, the main aim of this 5 years project is to build up this edible cities network, and the city is not mean to have just cities on board, as Ina mentioned. It is about urban actors at all, and within the first 2.5 years, we were dealing with our own network of our participating cities within the project, and now we are entering a phase where we can expand the network, and we have a lot of requests for joining the network, and I'm not sure if Copenhagen is already on board, but it is the aim to have as many as possible participants, actors, municipalities, whatever you want on board, to have this growing network fulfilled, of course.
Thank you. Yeah, let's see how the Edible Cities Network grows in the future. I think we have one last question. If anyone else has questions, just write them in the Q&A and we have a few more minutes to answer them. So this question comes again from Isabella. It's a very interesting question. It's also quite complex to answer, I think. So she says, cities are becoming increasingly diverse and cultural understandings of acceptable food and sustainability vary. I'm wondering how ECS initiatives can take this into account, both when it comes to the composition of city teams and in project implementation. I don't know if anyone wants to help Isabella out with this question.
Yeah, I only can highlight that this diversity of different backgrounds we have in our city teams, we have in our initiatives, and the vision on how an edible city should look like. Yeah, it's naturally in the city teams as they are open, and always there are people that are new and contact us and come into the process. Of course, we have also some hindrances and barriers. If a city team, maybe you know this from every group dynamics, if something is already running, it's complicated always to keep it open, but this is our aim, to keep it open and also adaptive to new processes and new understandings.
Thank you, Ina.
Maybe to give an example, within the project and all consortium members, or a lot of, are developing 7 different master plans for ECS implementations, for example, and they will never look like the same. They will be different and according to the local needs, for example. So that's why the city team is very important, and yeah, that's all.
Yeah, I guess something that is embraced in the project, diversity, rather than, and that enriches it, hopefully, and that's what's looked for also when the city teams are created. We have a very interesting question here from Colin, because it's about governance and getting cities on board and that kind of thing. So he suggests that one challenge for getting city team leaders on board is that perhaps they see sustainable food production as something that is the remit of the parks department within local authorities, and the real challenge is to demonstrate how public realm in cities can become edible spaces. Do you have any thoughts? I see nodding. Please go ahead.
Yeah, Colin, this is a really a big issue, really complicated. But something that I try to explain, that we try to step out of these sectoral thinking of city administrations. In smaller cities, this is easier because sometimes the same person should play this role, and there are more connections and conversations, and also a more inclusive way to find solutions. In large cities, this is a really a big issue. We have this discussion in some of our city teams that making parks, for example, more edible, give them this use as a garden, means at the same time reduce access to others. And this is something that that we are discussing with these departments and with people that thinking in this. And the main challenge is even that you should, as people working in the administration, you should also give over power and decision power and responsibility to others. So it's going out of the comfortable place where you are managing things and deciding things. And this is really an issue in many of our city teams between this top-down behavior, which is system-wise the way how administration works, and the appropriation of the local people, of the citizens, that they take responsibility for their environment and action, etc. And we see some really good points in the Global South regarding the participatory budgeting. Also some parts in Europe have this approach. And then we have to be open also to some wrong decisions that not real wrong, but some to experience that might not have the result that might be originally the aim. And this is something that maybe in the summer school, in the discussion, when we talk about policy and governance, then we can come again to this point.
Yeah, it's a very, very important question that Colin asked. I don't know if Thomas and Suhana want to say anything.
Thomas, you first, or?
Yeah, I think Nina mentioned a lot of things, and I totally agree with Colin. This is a very crucial point. But yeah, big organizations like city administrations or universities are like big ships going from A to B, and they will hardly change their course just for a small ECS matter. But sometimes this small thing is an ice mountain, and it would make a lot of sense to change the course.
Okay, thank you for this valuable Titanic input. But I wanted to also give a little bit more hope that we are actually monitoring these processes, and we are also observing these processes, but we were also reacting from the scratch to it, because it was implemented through the whole project actually, that the infrastructure and the governance of driving this topic into the governmental and the political system is one major issue in this project. And with this, we are actually having our head now 2.5 years, and we have another 2.5 years to show that, for example, in Milan or also in Copenhagen and other cities, it functions much more better, that the administration was adjusting to the needs of the society, was adjusting to the transformation which is taking place anyway. So we are at the Institute for Transformation. So we are actually a whole institute elaborating how transformation can go on without hurting other people. I mean, one major aspect in this project is also to be able to change perspective all the time. And if we have to change the perspective to the city administration, there is a totally new, or maybe not fully totally, but there's a new development, and we cannot expect that there is an immediate reaction on that. So this takes a bit of time, and time is here relevant for transforming smoothly and to go with the city administration and not against the city administration, and also to go with all the different stakeholders. This is one major aspect this project does, actually.
Thank you, Suhana. We don't have any more questions as far as I can see in the Q&A. But I have one question, because Ina, you mentioned that there had been some interesting impacts of COVID on the project or on the city teams and that kind of thing. And I'm sure it's difficult to sum it up, but yeah, what kind of things did you notice? What were the most interesting impacts?
Yeah, first of all, we suffered, of course, the COVID impacts of everyone, the digitalization. And maybe we find a way to make this summer school not so fatigue. But for a project which tries to exchange, yeah, from the global south, the global north, the global east, and the global west, for us, it was finally also a way to talk more frequently to the others. To the other people from the other parts of the world. So this was really something like, yeah, a good opportunity to meet and to exchange and to speak. And another issue is in the implementation of our living labs and of the meetings, there were certain at the beginning, yeah, let's say it was complicated to meet because, yeah, the people were afraid, etc., and there was no legal possibility to meet, etc., etc. But then after this, the people realized really what they need in place, which personal meeting they need, and I guess the initiatives also gained a lot of importance in their neighborhood, and the people are more present. And this is something that you could, for example, ask in the session Vic and Robert, how they perceive this in their initiatives. So there's some increasing interest on adaptive solutions. And this was also an example from Tunis. We will have Latifa also in the summer school. There was much more interest on a local food production because everybody realized the dependency on the global food system, and many people realized, oh, it's maybe better to make it more regional, more local, and look more on the place nearby and the green infrastructure, the city, and the more local was much more important in the last 2 years, let's say, or 1.5 years after let's say a certain time where we all were trapped in the situation.
Thank you, Ina. I don't know if Thomas and Suhana have any thoughts about the impact of COVID.
Yeah, actually, on the Edible City Solution initiatives, the impact were quite different. We're differing a lot, actually. What came out of several workshops we made is that, on the one hand, the awareness for their work and the transformation they induce was valued a lot. On the other hand, it was quite complex to tackle the different issues which arose by not being able to meet, not being able to have harvest events with each other, and the shifting of that of a harvest event to the digital world was not possible in many initiatives. So what we observed is really two sides. One side is saying, okay, this is really, it harmed my business to a great extent. On the other hand, we can see that the awareness on food when we were all completely digitized. The only thing we did was taking care of what do we eat today, and and then sit again in front of the hardware, and so yeah, there was a major impact on the Edible City Solution initiatives, and this is from first insights. This was also confirmed. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe one other point besides all the things which were mentioned now, we could recognize a kind of retreat to the personal life, and because within the city teams there were, for example, some cases where relatives were dying or affected by COVID, and that's why there was a shift to some personal issues, of course, and but this we could recognize on all the other systems and organizations as well. But it was, the project was affected by that, of course.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear that people valued food more, because of course that was like the only thing that was left, and people realized how important it was, right? Also with all of the shortages in the supermarket and that kind of thing. Just gonna do one last check of the Q&A, but no, it looks like we've answered everybody's questions. And yeah, on the topic of digital world and Zoom fatigue and that kind of thing, maybe now is the time to wrap up. So I would say thank you again to all of our panelists, to Dr. Ina Säumel, Suhana Reddy, and Thomas Wachtel, and thank you very much also to everyone for taking part. Thank you for your really interesting questions. I'll be uploading this video onto the Moodle for the summer school participants, so you can watch the video and also see the presentation. And if you have any more questions for any of us, you can visit the website and send us an email there on the contact form, or if you're in the summer school, you can also find everyone's email addresses in the welcome pack that I sent around, so you can ask us any questions, if any come up afterwards. And that having been said, I'll look forward to meeting the summer school participants and seeing your faces later on today in a few hours. So yeah, thank you once again, and take care, and I'll see you later. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Marisa, also for your good and nice introduction.
You're welcome. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. See you later.